Welcome to our deep dive, everybody. Today we're tackling something really captivating, I think, environmental awareness and stewardship, but we're looking at it from a very specific viewpoint, a faith-based perspective.
Yeah, we're zeroing in on the Islamic tradition and the Hizmet movement specifically.
Hmm.
And we've got a very, how should I put it, eclectic mix of sources to work with.
We do.
We've got an academic article, we've got pop culture like a movie and a documentary we're going to look at, and then, of course, the teachings from the Islamic faith itself.
And how the Hizmet movement is approaching environmentalism, too. It's a really interesting blend of perspectives.
That is, yeah.
And it leads to a question that I think is worth asking. How does faith inspire action, especially when we're talking about a global challenge as big as climate change?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And to kick things off, we've got this article. It's by Dr. Mehmet Ali Eroğlu. The title is, get this, Environmental Awareness, the Responsibility to Protect the Harmony of the World's Soul.
Now that's a title.
I know, right? It grabs you.
It really makes you want to dive in.
And Dr. Eroğlu, he starts off by focusing on this really beautiful idea, the idea of the Earth as this divinely ordered creation.
It's like a perfectly designed masterpiece.
Exactly. Everything in its place, everything in harmony.
He even uses a verse from the Quran to get this across. It's 673 from Surah Al-Mulk.
Yeah, the one about the seven heavens and how they all exist in harmony.
It's a powerful reminder that there's an order to creation, a balance.
And that we as humans were meant to care for that, respect it. Dr. Eroğlu takes it even a step further, though. He connects this to a hadith,
Okay.
where the earth is described as a masjid.
Wow. A place of worship.
Think about that for a second. When you think of the earth as a masjid,
It changes your whole perspective, doesn't it?
it does, yeah. It goes beyond just admiring nature. You start to see it as sacred.
And if something is sacred, you're going to want to protect it.
Exactly. It's less about, oh, how beautiful, and more about that sense of responsibility. Like, we have a duty to care for this.
Mm-hmm.
And that responsibility, it becomes even more urgent when we think about all the environmental problems the world's facing.
Things like plastic pollution, deforestation,
Yeah.
biodiversity loss.
Mm.
We're talking about disrupting that divine harmony that Dr. Eroğlu is highlighting.
That's exactly it. So then the question becomes, where do we even start? How do we address this? And that's where things get really interesting, because now we're going to take a little detour into pop culture.
Pop culture. All right, I'm intrigued. What kind of insights can we get from, say, a movie?
Well, let's look at Don't Look Up for a second. Remember that one? That satirical comedy about a comet?
Oh, yeah, the one heading straight for Earth.
Yeah, that one. It was a little,
Unsettling to watch, to say the least.
It was, wasn't it? But it's a really powerful allegory, I think, for how society reacts to climate change. The way people in the movie just kind of brush off this impending disaster.
It's eerily similar to how we react to real warnings about the environment, isn't it? Like, are we ignoring the signs?
Exactly. It makes you question, are we doing enough?
Yeah.
And what does individual responsibility even look like when you're dealing with something this massive?
Mm-hmm.
These are questions that the movie, even though it's satire, it forces us to ask them. It makes us think about our role in all of this.
Okay, so we have a satirical take on how people deal with a global crisis. Now, for a different angle, let's shift gears to the documentary Our Planet.
Our Planet takes you on this amazing visual journey. You see all these incredible ecosystems all over the world. And it really drives home the point that everything's connected. I mean, everything, from the tiniest little creatures to the biggest whales.
When I watched it, I was just captivated by the beauty of nature. And it reminded me of what we stand to lose if we don't take action.
Right. It's not just about pretty pictures. It's about understanding the urgency of protecting this biodiversity. It makes you want to get up and do something.
You know, I think we all got a glimpse of what positive change could look like during the pandemic. It was a tragedy, of course. But during that time, in many places, the air and water quality actually improved.
It did, just because human activity was reduced.
It was almost like the planet had this moment to breathe.
Yeah.
And it was really eye-opening.
It was sobering, definitely, but also hopeful, because it showed us, even if it was unintentional, that the choices we make, they actually matter.
Exactly. But now, let's step back from these global observations and take a look at things from a historical perspective. Islamic history has a lot to teach us about environmental stewardship.
It does, yeah. And we can start with the Prophet Muhammad, PBUH. He placed huge importance on respecting nature.
There's that famous hadith, right? Even if the day of judgment is upon you and you have a seedling in your hand, plant it.
Exactly. Talk about a powerful message of responsibility right there.
And it's not just words. His actions reinforce that. He established protected areas where cutting down trees was forbidden. He encouraged planting trees and cultivating the land.
It was a holistic approach to the environment.
And then there's Caliph Umar, known for his justice and compassion.
Oh, absolutely. He put policies in place for water conservation. He even had laws protecting animal rights.
He really understood that everything's connected and that balance is crucial. His policies, they're like a model for environmental stewardship.
They are, yeah. And it shows that even back then, centuries ago, caring for the environment, it was a top priority.
His leadership's a reminder that this isn't some new age concept. This is something wise leaders have grasped for ages. And if we fast forward to more recent times, Fethullah Gulen's teachings offer a very modern perspective on faith-inspired environmentalism.
Right. Gulen's teachings really underline the idea that when you care for the environment, you're expressing your faith. He sees the order and harmony in the universe as evidence of God's existence in unity.
So it becomes less about just doing a good deed and more about fulfilling a spiritual obligation, like you're honoring that divine harmony by caring for the earth.
Exactly. And he's written extensively on this. Two of his works in particular, Mumin Ufkunda Tevla, which translates to Environment on the Horizon of a Believer,
Okay.
and Sukuk Fe Cheveresi, meaning Child and Environment.
Sounds like those would give a great insight into the Islamic perspective.
Definitely. And he doesn't stop at just theory. He really emphasizes action, which brings us to the Hizmet movement and its potential for actually making a change.
Because the Hizmet movement draws its inspiration from Gulen's teachings, right?
It does, yeah. And it's known for its focus on service, dialogue, and education. And those values, they carry over into their approach to the environment, too.
So when we talk about taking action, how is the Hizmet movement putting these values into practice, especially when it comes to the environment?
Well, they've got a number of really cool initiatives going on. One thing they've done is really embrace technology as a way to empower young people to adopt these eco-friendly lifestyles. You know, things like educational apps, online workshops, and really engaging social media campaigns.
That's smart. Getting younger generations on board is so important if you want to see real change. What else are they doing?
Well, on a more practical level, they've got these compost and recycling programs running in communities all over the world, which is great because it shows that even small-scale efforts can have a real impact. They've also organized these global tree planting campaigns.
Oh yeah, I've seen those online. They're really good at using social media to, mobilize volunteers, raise funds. It's impressive.
Yeah, it is. It's really inspiring to see how many people have come together to plant trees, all because of this shared belief in environmental stewardship.
It's like a global forest, growing one tree at a time. And what I find really interesting is that they're not just focused on planting trees, they're also putting together these educational resources that promote sustainable living and help people understand how their daily choices affect the planet.
Right. They really get that it's all about individual actions adding up to collective change. And that's where their emphasis on service and dialogue really shines. It's not about lecturing people or telling them what to do. It's about having these meaningful conversations and inspiring people to act out of compassion and a sense of responsibility, like we're all in this together.
It all comes back to that question we started with. How can faith inspire action on climate change? And it seems like the Hizmet movement is offering some compelling answers. It's not about waiting for some big global movement to fix everything. It's about understanding that change starts with each of us.
Right, that's where individual responsibility comes in. Because even something that seems small can have a ripple effect, especially when you consider how the Hizmet movement emphasizes collective effort.
Like, if everyone committed to just one small change, whether it's using less plastic, choosing public transportation, or buying sustainable products, imagine the impact we could have.
Exactly. And let's not underestimate the power of education. Sharing what we know, raising awareness, inspiring others to act, these are all crucial pieces of the puzzle.
It's like we're planting seeds of change, right? And those seeds can grow into something much bigger than we can imagine.
It really is about cultivating that sense of responsibility, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. What about you? What are some of the things that stand out to you from all these different perspectives we've talked about?
Well, what strikes me is how all of these sources, whether it's the Quran or the Hizmet movement, they all emphasize this interconnectedness, this connection we have to nature. There's this consistent message that we're not separate from the environment and that our actions, have consequences. Consequences that extend far beyond ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very humbling thought, but also empowering in a way,
Yeah.
because it means we actually have the power to make a difference.
And that's where faith can be so powerful, I think. It can provide guidance, give us a sense of purpose, help us understand our place in this bigger picture. It's not about imposing beliefs on anyone. It's more about tapping into that universal desire to care for something greater than ourselves.
Absolutely. It's about finding that shared understanding, that common ground, that allows us to work together toward a common goal. Because at the end of the day, protecting the environment, it's not about politics. It's not about ideology. It's about safeguarding the foundation of our existence.
It's about recognizing that this earth, it's a gift, a trust that's been given to us, and we're meant to care for it.
And that responsibility, that call to action, it's something that resonates deeply within all of us. It's woven into our very humanity.
So if we had to boil it down, what's the one key takeaway we want listeners to leave with?
Well, I think the core message here is this. If we view environmental stewardship as a matter of faith, as this moral imperative that stems from our connection to creation, it becomes more than just a cause. It becomes a way of life.
A way of living in harmony with nature,
Yeah.
with each other, and with ourselves.
And that, I think, is a path worth taking.
It really is a beautiful way to think about it. And what I find so inspiring is that it's not about, waiting around for someone else to solve the problem. It's about realizing that each of us, we have the power to make a change.
That's a much more empowering way to look at it, isn't it? We're not helpless. We have choices. We can act, be part of the solution.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be this massive, overwhelming thing where you have to completely overhaul your entire life overnight. You don't have to suddenly become a zero-waste guru or anything.
Right.
It's about those little choices, those conscious decisions we make every day. And gradually we start moving towards a more sustainable way of life.
And those small steps, when you multiply them across communities and societies, they turn into something much bigger. Imagine if we all made a conscious effort to, say, cut back on plastic. Or conserve water, or support local farmers.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the enormity of the problem, right? Climate change, pollution, deforestation. But you're right, it also comes down to those everyday choices.
Exactly. Think about your own consumption habits. How much waste do you produce? What kinds of products are you buying? The food you eat? All of those decisions matter. Supporting companies that prioritize sustainability. Advocating for policies that protect the environment. It's all part of it.
I think the key is making these choices not out of guilt or obligation, but out of a genuine love and respect for the planet.
That's where real, lasting change comes from. When we stop seeing the environment as something separate from ourselves. When we realize that we are part of it.
It's like that saying, we don't inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children.
That's a powerful way to put it.
Yeah.
Because it really highlights our responsibility, doesn't it? To leave this planet in a better state than we found it.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought. If we truly believe that caring for the environment is a matter of faith, if it's a reflection of our values and our connection to something bigger than ourselves, what steps can you take to restore that balance, to be a guardian of the Earth's harmony?
That's the question we all need to be asking ourselves. What can you change in your own life, even if it's a small thing, that aligns with that sense of responsibility? What actions can you take to honor that interconnectedness of all living things?
It could be as simple as planting a tree in your yard, or using a reusable water bottle instead of plastic, or supporting a local environmental organization. Maybe it's just spending more time in nature, really appreciating its beauty, finding inspiration in its resilience.
There's so many ways to make a difference. And when we all contribute, the impact is huge.
So go out there, make a difference. Start small, stay curious, and remember, every act of environmental stewardship, no matter how small it seems, is a step towards a brighter, more sustainable future for everyone. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Until next time, stay curious.